I had been planning that day for months. Not just the proposal, but every little detail that went into it. Every tiny thought, every small gesture, I had imagined over and over again in my mind. I wanted it to be perfect, not for the world to see, not for anyone to applaud, but for her. Because she was everything I had ever imagined, everything I had ever wanted in someone. And I wanted her to feel it. I wanted her to know that she was loved, fully, deeply, and honestly. The day began like any other, calm and ordinary. But inside me, my heart was racing in a way that only comes when you're about to put everything you've built, everything you've risked, into a single moment. I had rehearsed my words countless times. I knew how I wanted to speak, how I wanted to hold her hands, the way I would look into her eyes. I wanted it to feel intimate. I wanted it to feel real. No grandeur, no unnecessary theatrics. Just her, me, and the truth of how I felt. When I finally got down on one knee, my hands were shaking more than I thought possible. I took a deep breath and looked at her face. She was smiling, her eyes bright with surprise and happiness. And in that moment, everything else disappeared. The world outside the room, the noise of the city, the tick of the clock on the wall, none of it mattered. Only her. Only us. Her words came softly at first, almost shyly, yes. And then, as if the universe had finally aligned, she said it again with certainty. Yes, I will. I felt a wave of relief, of joy, of disbelief wash over me. I slipped the ring onto her finger and she looked at it, her eyes shining, and I thought, this is it. This is the moment we remember forever. We sat together on the couch afterward. No fanfare. No photos. No one else in the room. Just silence. Comfortable silence. Her hand rested in mine, and I felt the warmth of her skin, the softness of her touch, the quiet pulse of her heartbeat against mine. I wanted to memorize everything. Her smile, the way her hair fell over her shoulder, the faint scent of her perfume that always lingered in the air when she was near. I wanted to hold this memory, this exact moment, forever. And then, she picked up her phone. Not that unusual. She was always checking messages, always scrolling, always typing. But there was a shift in her energy. Something subtle. Her smile wasn't soft anymore. It wasn't warm. It wasn't affectionate. It had a strange edge to it. A smirk. And I didn't notice it at first. I was still lost in the afterglow of our engagement, still replaying the way she had said yes, still feeling that rush of happiness I had imagined so many times before. But then I saw it. The way her fingers moved across the screen, fast and confident, tapping out words with the ease of someone who knew exactly what they wanted to say. And the words on that screen, they were not meant for me. They were not the soft, loving words I had expected. They were for someone else. Or maybe a group of people. It didn't matter. What mattered was that I was there, and I saw them. She typed something, a phrase, short, casual, yet sharp. I remember reading it and feeling my heart sink deeper than I ever thought possible. LOL, his proposal was so basic. The words hung in the air, even though she had sent them to someone else. They existed in the moment I was trapped in. And suddenly, that beautiful, perfect memory of her saying yes was shattered. The warmth, the joy, the intimacy, all of it was replaced by confusion, disbelief, and a slow burning hurt that crept into every part of me. Because I realized, in that instant, that the person I had thought I knew, the person I had loved so completely, the person I had trusted with my heart, was capable of mocking me while I was sitting right next to her. That she could accept something so meaningful from me, something so personal, and then dismiss it in the same breath to someone else. My mind raced. Was this a joke? Was I overreacting? No. The words were there. Clear. Unmistakable. Mocking. And worst of all, casual. She didn't even think twice about writing them. I didn't say anything. I didn't confront her. I didn't make a scene. I just sat there, feeling the weight of every word, every letter, every laugh she had typed behind my back. My hands tightened around the couch cushion. My chest felt like it was being squeezed slowly, painfully. The room, once filled with warmth, now felt cold and distant. The happiness that had filled me moments ago seemed like it had been a lie, a trick of my own imagination. And yet, I stayed. I didn't leave. Not immediately. Part of me wanted to witness it, to see how far this mockery would go. Part of me, still naive, hoped that this was a mistake. That she would look at me, realize what she had done, and apologize. That she would explain, and somehow, everything would be okay again. But deep down, I knew better. She didn't look at me. She didn't notice the change in me, the shadow that crossed my face. She continued typing, sending more messages, laughing softly to herself. And I realized something important, something that I had tried not to see. She had forgotten I was there. Not momentarily. Not accidentally. Completely. The person I loved, the person I had trusted, had a side of herself that existed without me, that didn't include me, that could see me as nothing more than a subject of amusement. That's when the first sharp sting of betrayal hit me. Not anger, not rage, something colder, more precise. A clarity. I saw her differently in that moment. Not as the woman I thought I knew, not as the one I imagined building a future with, but as someone capable of undermining the very thing I had offered her. My heart, my trust, my vulnerability. And all she did was laugh at it. I remember the silence that followed. She put the phone down for a moment, and we sat there. The couch between us didn't feel the same. Her smile returned, but it no longer reached her eyes. Her hand rested near mine, but I couldn't touch it without feeling the echo of those words. I wanted to speak, to ask, to confront, but no words came out. My throat was dry. My voice, too small. And in that quiet, I understood that some moments change you forever. And this simple, ordinary night, was one of them. Because that night, I learned something essential. Not about her. Not about love. But about respect. About honesty. About the thin line between someone who truly cares and someone who just performs care when it's convenient. And as I watched her laugh quietly to herself, completely unaware of the storm building inside me, I realized that this line had been crossed, and that nothing I could do in that moment would undo what had already been seen, already known, already felt. I stayed there until she put her phone down completely, until she leaned back on the couch and sighed, thinking the moment was over. And then, only then, did I allow myself to breathe again. Slowly, carefully, deliberately, because I knew that the next steps would matter more than any words I could say right now. The betrayal wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. It was casual. But it was real. And it would shape everything that came next. I couldn't take my eyes off her phone. Every movement of her fingers, every tap on the screen, felt like a betrayal unfolding in real time. I told myself I shouldn't look. That I should give her privacy. That I shouldn't invade her space. But some part of me couldn't help it. Maybe a part of me wanted to see the truth, wanted to know whether this was just a fleeting moment or something much deeper. And then I saw it. Her fingers had paused, hovering above the screen for a split second, as if she was savoring the words she had just typed. My chest tightened. My stomach dropped. The message was simple. Short. Casual. Casual, yet sharp. The kind of words someone types without hesitation, without thinking twice. LOL, his proposal was so basic. I read it again. And again. And again. Each time the words burned a little more into my mind, a little more into my memory, a little more into my sense of self. It wasn't just the words themselves. It was the intent behind them. The dismissal. The mockery. The laughter at my expense. While I had been vulnerable. While I had been honest. While I had been giving her everything I had, she had been laughing. And I was there. I stared at her, waiting for some hint of remorse, some sign that she realized I had seen it. But there was nothing. She was calm. Relaxed. Even. Smiling to herself as she typed another message, completely unaware, or perhaps deliberately ignoring, the fact that the person she had just laughed at was sitting right beside her. I wanted to ask. I wanted to demand an explanation. I wanted to scream, to shake her, to make her see what she had done. But instead, I felt a strange stillness wash over me. Not numbness. Not indifference. But a clarity I had never experienced before. I could see her differently now. Not through the lens of love or trust, but through the lens of truth. And the truth was painful. Because in that moment, I realized something essential. The woman I had trusted with my heart, the woman I had imagined building a life with, was capable of mocking me openly. While I was vulnerable. While I was giving everything I had. While I was sitting right there, in the same room. And worse, she didn't feel guilty. She didn't feel shame. She didn't even hesitate. The irony was almost unbearable. I had just experienced one of the most significant moments of my life, the moment I asked her to share her life with me. And in the same moment, she had reduced my feelings, my courage, my sincerity, to a joke. Something laughable. Something basic. And I was meant to accept it silently, I suppose, as if my feelings didn't matter. I could feel a storm building inside me, but it wasn't the kind of anger that yells. It wasn't the kind of rage that explodes in violence. It was a quiet, precise storm. A storm of understanding. Of clarity. Of seeing someone exactly as they are. And what I saw scared me more than any argument ever could. She had typed the message so casually, so confidently, so easily. There was no hesitation. No doubt. No second thought. The kind of mockery that comes from deep familiarity, from feeling comfortable enough to laugh at someone without fear of consequence. And that was worse than the words themselves. Because it meant that this wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a fleeting thought. This was her. Her real self. The side of her that existed when no one else was watching, when no one else mattered. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I didn't confront her. I just watched. And as I watched, I felt a strange mixture of disbelief and sorrow. I had spent months, years even, building trust. Building a connection. Building a vision of a shared future. And in one simple, short message, she had shattered it all. And yet, there was something even more painful than her words. Something subtler, something quieter. It was the way she ignored me after typing them. The way she leaned back on the couch, satisfied with her own cleverness, unaware that I was absorbing every detail. That I was witnessing the very essence of her betrayal. That I was remembering it. Memorizing it. Storing it somewhere deep, where it would never be forgotten. I kept thinking, had she ever truly respected me? Had she ever truly loved me? Or had she only loved the idea of me? The version of me that could entertain her, the version of me that could make her smile, the version of me that could propose in a cute, Instagram-worthy way? Had she only loved the fantasy? And now, faced with the real vulnerability, the real courage, she had laughed? I wanted to cry. I wanted to shout. I wanted to make her feel the weight of what she had done. But I couldn't. I sat there silently, my mind racing, my heart breaking quietly. And in that quiet, I realized that some truths can't be fixed with words. Some betrayals can't be undone with apologies. Some moments change you forever, and there is nothing anyone can do about it. She continued typing. More laughter. More messages. More screenshots, I guessed, sent to someone else, shared with people I didn't know. My hands twitched, but I didn't reach for her phone. I didn't snatch it from her. I didn't confront her. Because confrontation wasn't necessary yet. Observation was. Clarity was. And what I observed shook me to my core. I had imagined a future with her. A life full of shared dreams, shared struggles, shared laughter. And now, I could see a crack in that vision. A deep, jagged crack that I couldn't ignore. It wasn't just a crack in trust. It was a crack in character. A crack in integrity. A crack in everything I had believed about her. And that realization hurt more than any argument, more than any fight, more than any betrayal could have. Because this wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a lapse in judgment. It was intentional, calculated, carefree. And that made it worse. Much worse. The thought that someone you love, someone you have invited into the deepest parts of your heart, could dismiss you so easily, mock you so freely, and not even notice the damage they cause, it changes you. Permanently. I remember the quiet after she set her phone down for a moment. The silence was heavy, oppressive. I could hear my own heartbeat, loud and uneven in my ears. I could feel my pulse in my temples, in my hands, in my chest. I wanted to speak. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break something, anything, to release the storm inside me. But I didn't. Because sometimes, silence is stronger than words. Sometimes, watching is stronger than reacting. And so I watched. I memorized her expressions, her gestures, the way she laughed softly to herself, unaware of the storm she had unleashed in me. I memorized the words on the screen, the casual cruelty, the thoughtlessness. I memorized the betrayal in its purest form, unfiltered, undiluted. And I realized, with cold clarity, that my life would never be the same after this night. Because in that moment, I understood something essential. Not about her. Not about love. But about respect. About honesty. About the unspoken lines that define whether someone is worthy of your trust, your vulnerability, your heart. And she had crossed them. Completely. Unapologetically. Without hesitation. And as I sat there, heart pounding, silent, watching, I just knew, that nothing would ever be the same again. That this moment, this simple, ordinary night, would be etched into my memory forever. That I would carry it with me, every time I thought of her, every time I remembered what it felt like to be loved, or, more accurately, to be used as a source of amusement. And in that quiet, in that unbearable stillness, I made a decision. Not yet an action, but a decision. I would not allow this to define me. I would not allow this betrayal to break me. But I would not forget it. I would not forgive it lightly. And I would not let her continue to dismiss me without consequence. Because some things, once seen, cannot be unseen. Some betrayals, once experienced, cannot be ignored. And some truths, no matter how painful, demand acknowledgement. I stayed on that couch long after she had put her phone down. The silence between us was deafening, a wall I could feel pressing down on my chest. I stared at the muted screen of the TV, pretending to be absorbed by it, but my mind was elsewhere, replaying the message over and over, analyzing her every gesture, her every expression. How could she laugh like that? How could she sit there, right beside me, and treat my heart as if it were a joke? The more I thought about it, the more pieces fell into place. All those little moments I had ignored, all those small signs I had brushed off, suddenly made sense. The dismissive comments she had made in the past, the time she had joked at my expense in front of her friends, the way she subtly made me feel small without me even noticing, it all added up. They weren't mistakes. They weren't accidents. They were patterns, and now, after that one message, I could see them clearly. And in that clarity, the weight of betrayal grew heavier. Not just the words, but what they represented, a lack of respect, a lack of genuine care, a lack of honesty. She had pretended, performed love, made me believe in a shared future. And while I had been offering my heart, fully and freely, she had been performing a facade. A facade that crumbled the moment she thought she could laugh at me without consequence. I thought about the proposal itself, the hours I had spent planning it, the late nights spent worrying about whether she would like it, the nervous rehearsals in front of the mirror, the anticipation, the hope, the vulnerability. All of it had been mine alone. And yet, for her, it had been basic. A punchline. A joke to be shared with someone else. It wasn't just hurt I felt, it was disbelief. How could someone be so careless with another person's emotions? So thoughtless, so indifferent? I tried to reconcile the woman I had loved with the person I was seeing now, typing and laughing behind my back, and I couldn't. The puzzle pieces didn't fit. There was no bridge between the reality of her actions and the image of her I had carried in my heart. And then, in the quiet, I began to notice the small things I hadn't noticed before. The way she had leaned back on the couch, relaxed and unconcerned. The way her eyes flicked to the screen with a mischievous glint. The way her lips curved into a soft, satisfied smile after sending each message. It wasn't just laughter, it was delight. Pure, careless delight at mocking me, at making me feel small, at being clever while I remained oblivious. I realized, painfully, that this wasn't about a single message. This was about her perception of me, of us, of how little she valued my vulnerability, my honesty, my love. She hadn't just made fun of a moment, she had dismissed the very essence of what I had given her. The courage, the risk, the hope, all of it. And she had done it with such ease, such confidence, such indifference, that it broke something inside me I hadn't realized could break. I thought about love, real love, the kind that builds trust, that strengthens through honesty, that lifts you up instead of tearing you down. And I knew, deep in my core, that what we had was not that. It had never been that. Not truly. Because someone who truly loved you, truly respected you, would never type those words. Would never mock your courage. Would never treat your heart as a source of amusement. And now, there was no denying it. I saw her for who she really was. The realization hit me in waves. First disbelief, then sadness, then anger, then resignation. Each emotion washed over me in succession, leaving me drained but strangely awake. I felt the weight of every memory, every laugh, every smile, every hug we had shared. I could no longer view them as moments of intimacy or connection. Instead, they were reminders that I had been naive, reminders that I had trusted someone undeserving, reminders that I had given my heart to someone capable of cruelty. And yet, amidst the pain, a strange sense of clarity emerged. It was as if, in witnessing her true self, I had been granted a gift. I could finally see her, not as I wished her to be, but as she actually was. And with that vision came power. Not the power to hurt her, not the power to seek revenge, but the power to choose my own path. To reclaim my dignity. To set the boundaries I should have set from the start. I realized, slowly, that I had been living in a kind of illusion, one built from hope and desire, one constructed from the parts of her she chose to show me. And illusions, no matter how beautiful, crumble when confronted with reality. The woman I had imagined, the partner, the lover, the future, didn't exist. And what I was left with now was a choice, to accept this betrayal and pretend it didn't matter, or to confront it, to act, to protect myself from further pain. I thought about the future. About the life we had planned in my mind, the shared dreams, the vacations, the late-night talks, the plans to move in together, to build a home, to grow old side by side. And I knew that none of it could survive what I had just witnessed. Not the future I had imagined, not the love I had believed in. It had been built on a foundation of illusion, and illusions can't withstand truth. And in that quiet, oppressive room, I understood the depth of my feelings. Not the love I had felt, that was still there, stubborn and persistent, but the love I deserved. The love I had sought, the respect I had hoped for, the honesty I had expected. None of it could come from her. She had shown me clearly, without hesitation, without remorse, that she was incapable of it. And that realization, while painful, was liberating. Because now, I knew. I knew who she really was. I knew what I had given her, and I knew what she had returned. And in knowing, I was free. Free from expectation, free from illusion, free from the weight of misplaced trust. I didn't yet know the steps I would take, but I knew the direction. Away. Away from her, away from this mockery, away from the betrayal, away from the woman who could laugh at my heart while sitting beside me. And yet, there was still a lingering pain, a quiet ache that refused to be ignored. It was the pain of loss, of disillusionment, of realizing that someone I had loved so deeply was not who I thought they were. The pain of knowing that the future I had imagined, built in my mind with care and hope, was gone. But even in that pain, I found a spark of resolve. A determination to honor my own heart, to protect my own dignity, to reclaim my sense of self. I watched her for a few more moments, committing every detail to memory. The way her hair fell over her shoulders, the way her eyes sparkled with mischief, the curve of her lips as she typed another laugh-filled message. I memorized it all, not out of obsession, not out of lingering attachment, but because I knew that this night, this simple, ordinary night, would stay with me forever. It was a turning point. A moment of awakening. A moment of truth. And in that awakening, I made a silent vow to myself. I would not let this betrayal define me. I would not let her actions diminish my worth. I would carry the memory of this night as a lesson, a guide, a reminder of the standards I would never compromise. And I would move forward, stronger, clearer, and more certain than ever before that respect and honesty are not negotiable. The night dragged on, silent and heavy. I couldn't sleep. I tried lying on the bed, staring at the ceiling, counting the cracks in the plaster as if they held the answers I was seeking. But my mind refused rest. Every memory, every laugh, every word she had typed over and over in that room replayed like a movie in slow motion. LOL, his proposal was so basic. The words repeated in my mind with the precision of a recording, each syllable a sharp sting to my heart. I thought about confronting her. I imagined the scene, me standing, voice shaking, heart exposed, asking her why. Why she had laughed. Why she had mocked the most vulnerable moment I had ever shared. Why she had chosen amusement over respect. I imagined her defensiveness, her excuses, her denial. And I realized, even before I said a word, that confrontation would solve nothing. Her words weren't a mistake. They weren't impulsive. They were intentional, careless, and revealing. No amount of questions would change that truth. I remembered something my father once told me: you can't change someone's character. You can only choose how long to remain in their presence. And in that moment, I understood the weight of that lesson. She wasn't going to change. She wasn't going to apologize sincerely. She wasn't going to respect the courage it had taken for me to put a ring in my hand and offer my heart. And so, if I wanted to protect myself, if I wanted to preserve my dignity, I had to act. But how? What action would hold meaning? What would convey the weight of her betrayal without making me stoop to mockery myself? I thought about revenge, of course. A small, satisfying act that would make her feel the sting she had inflicted on me. But even that felt hollow. It wasn't about revenge. It was about truth. About clarity. About holding her accountable in a way that could not be ignored. And then the idea came. Quietly. Simple. Perfectly logical. I would take a screenshot. Just one. A single, undeniable proof of what she had typed. Not to humiliate her publicly, not to shame her in front of friends, but to preserve the truth. To show someone who mattered, someone who would recognize the weight of her betrayal, exactly what had happened. Her mother. The thought struck me with precision. Her mother. The woman who had raised her, who knew her intimately, who had guided her through life. If anyone deserved to know the truth about this behavior, it was her. And yet, even as the idea formed, I felt a strange hesitation. Sending the screenshot to her mother felt almost extreme. Could it backfire? Would it cause chaos? Would it make things worse? Then I thought about the alternative. I could do nothing. I could pretend I hadn't seen it. I could smile, nod, continue the charade of love and intimacy, and carry the weight of this mockery in silence. But that would mean I was complicit. That would mean I allowed her to disrespect me, humiliate me, and ignore my feelings. I couldn't. I wouldn't. So I acted. Slowly. Carefully. Deliberately. I unlocked her phone when she wasn't looking. The screen still displayed her message, proud and careless. I captured it, one single, perfect screenshot. The timestamp, the text, the context, all of it preserved. It wasn't about punishment. It was about clarity, evidence, truth. I sat there for a moment, staring at the screenshot. My heart was still heavy. My chest still ached. But in that small, decisive act, I felt a shift. I had taken control. I had claimed my dignity. I had transformed helplessness into action. And I knew that the next step, sending the screenshot to her mother, would change everything. The morning came. Sunlight streamed through the blinds, spilling over the bed, casting long, quiet shadows. I hadn't slept. I hadn't eaten. I hadn't spoken. And yet, I felt a strange calmness. A sense of purpose. I drafted the message carefully, choosing words that were neutral, factual, concise. I didn't explain. I didn't argue. I didn't justify. I simply sent the screenshot, as is, to her mother. Then came the waiting. Minutes passed. Hours passed. Every vibration of my phone made my heart race. I imagined her mother reading the message, seeing the proof of her daughter's careless betrayal. I imagined her mother's disappointment, her shock, her anger. And I imagined my own relief, the feeling of no longer carrying this weight alone, the feeling of finally having someone on my side who understood the gravity of what had happened. When the call finally came, it was not from her. It was from her mother. And just hearing the voice, calm but tinged with disbelief, made the tension in my chest spike. I listened as she processed the screenshot, her voice rising and falling as shock gave way to concern, and concern gave way to a controlled fury. She didn't blame me. She didn't chastise me. She simply acknowledged the truth, and in that acknowledgement, I felt validation I hadn't expected. And then, her daughter called. I heard her voice, trembling, panicked, desperate. "Why would you do this? Why would you send that to Mom?" Her words were fast, fragmented, repeating themselves as if saying them louder might make them real, might undo what had been done. But I stayed silent for a moment. Let her feel the weight of her own actions. Let her realize that this was not about punishment. This was about truth. Finally, I spoke. Calmly. Measured. Without anger. Without drama. "Because you forgot I was there." Silence. A long, shivering silence. Then she spoke again, almost incoherently, trying to argue, to excuse, to justify. But I didn't engage. I didn't defend myself. I didn't negotiate. The words had already been sent. The truth had already been shared. The betrayal had already been witnessed. And that was enough. For the first time, I saw her truly scared. Not of losing me, not of being abandoned, scared of the consequences of her own actions. And for the first time, I realized something important. Fear is not respect. Fear is not love. Fear is a reaction to exposure. Respect, love, and integrity are the things that matter, and she had shown none of them. I ended the call. Not in anger. Not in hatred. But with finality. A quiet, resolute decision. I couldn't stay. I couldn't continue to be part of a story where my vulnerability was mocked, my trust disregarded, my heart treated as a source of amusement. The woman I loved, or thought I loved, was no longer someone I could share my life with. And yet, I felt no triumph, no joy, no satisfaction, only clarity, only the understanding that I had done the right thing, that I had protected myself, that I had refused to be a passive participant in a story of mockery and betrayal. Because sometimes, the most powerful action is not shouting. It's not confrontation. It's not dramatic displays. Sometimes, the most powerful action is simple, quiet, decisive, a small act of truth that exposes reality and demands acknowledgement. And in that act, you find strength. You find dignity. You find yourself again. I didn't contact her again after that morning. I didn't reply to her frantic messages or her tearful calls. I let the truth I had sent speak for itself. And in doing so, I reclaimed my life. I reclaimed my heart. I reclaimed my sense of self. And slowly, painfully, I began to breathe again. After sending the screenshot to her mother, a strange calm settled over me. The chaos in my mind remained, yes, the betrayal, the shock, the lingering pain, but beneath it all was clarity. I knew I had done the right thing. I had acted with dignity. I had refused to remain silent while my heart was mocked. And that clarity gave me a strange strength, one I had never felt before. I thought about her, the woman I had loved, trusted, imagined a future with. The same woman who had laughed at my proposal, who had mocked my vulnerability while sitting beside me, who had thought she could hide behind casual words and screenshots. I realized then that she was no longer the person I had imagined. She was someone I had believed in, but she had shown her true self. And that self was not worthy of my heart. Her calls came, one after another, frantic, desperate, trembling. "Why are you doing this? Why would you go to Mom?" Each word carried panic, fear, guilt, or perhaps the realization that she had been caught. I listened without interruption, letting the weight of her own actions echo back to her. I didn't answer immediately. I let her feel the tension, the distance, the inevitability of the choice I had already made. Finally, I spoke, calm, controlled, deliberate, "Because you forgot I was there." Silence. Her voice, when it came again, was fragile, broken. I didn't mean it. It wasn't like that. I was just joking. But I could feel the emptiness in those words. The lack of true remorse. The absence of understanding. The truth was simple. She had mocked my heart. And a joke cannot undo the betrayal. A laugh cannot erase the humiliation. And excuses cannot rebuild trust that has been shattered. I realized, at that moment, that she was afraid, not of hurting me, not of losing my love, but of being exposed. The fear of consequences had finally touched her, and for the first time, she understood the weight of her own actions. But fear is not respect. Fear is not love. Fear is a reaction to exposure. True respect, true love, true integrity, those are not conditional. They are choices, not reactions. And she had shown none of them. I stayed silent for a moment longer, letting the finality sink in. Then I said, gently but firmly, if you can laugh at me while sitting beside me, you never respected me. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I didn't beg her to understand. I merely stated the truth. And in that truth, there was power. There was clarity. There was finality. She tried to speak, to plead, to explain, but I didn't allow it. The conversation ended not with drama, but with the quiet weight of inevitability. I hung up. And I knew, in that moment, that I had made the right choice. I had reclaimed my heart, my dignity, my sense of self. I thought about the future, the life I had imagined, built in my mind with care and hope, with dreams of shared moments and laughter. All of that was gone. And yet, in its place was something far more valuable. The knowledge that I would never again allow someone to mock my heart without consequence, that I would never compromise my dignity, that I would never accept casual cruelty disguised as love. The next days were quiet. She sent messages, left voicemails, tried to reach me in person. But I didn't respond. Not because I didn't feel hurt, I did. Not because I didn't care, I did. But because engagement would have been meaningless. The truth had been shared. The betrayal had been witnessed. And now it was time for me to move forward, for her to confront her own actions, and for me to reclaim my life. I reflected on love. Not the kind built on convenience, amusement, or shallow affection. But the kind built on respect, honesty, and mutual care. The kind that strengthens, not diminishes. The kind that uplifts, not mocks. And I realized that what I had experienced was not love, but a performance. A facade. A temporary illusion that had crumbled in the face of truth. I thought about trust, fragile, precious, irreplaceable. Trust is not given lightly. Trust is not something to be mocked or dismissed. And when it is broken, the consequences are real and permanent. I had trusted her with my heart, my vulnerability, my hopes. And in return, she had chosen amusement over care, laughter over respect, mockery over love. And yet, I felt no hatred, no desire for revenge. Only clarity, only understanding. Only the quiet strength that comes from knowing that you acted rightly, that you held your dignity, that you refused to be complicit in someone else's cruelty. I thought about the lessons I had learned, lessons about boundaries, about respect, about the value of truth. I realized that sometimes the most powerful actions are not dramatic confrontations, not angry accusations, not public humiliations. Sometimes, the most powerful actions are quiet, deliberate, measured. Sometimes, the most powerful action is simply stating the truth, letting the consequences unfold, and walking away with your head held high. I remembered sitting on that couch, watching her type, laughing, mocking me without a thought. I remembered the first shock, the disbelief, the slow-burning realization of betrayal. I remembered the calm clarity that followed, the decision to capture the truth, the act of sending the screenshot to her mother. I remembered her panic, her fear, her calls. And I remembered the moment I finally spoke, stating the truth simply and clearly, because you forgot I was there. And I knew that this was not just the end of a relationship. This was the beginning of something new. A beginning where I would no longer allow casual cruelty to define me. A beginning where I would hold myself and others to the standards of respect and honesty that truly matter. A beginning where my heart, once exposed and vulnerable, could heal and grow stronger, wiser, and more resilient. I walked away that day with no dramatic gestures, no public declaration, no scene. Just a quiet, resolute sense of self. A knowledge that I had acted rightly, that I had preserved my dignity, and that I would never again allow someone to laugh at my heart while sitting beside me. Sometimes, the most powerful revenge is not yelling. Not confrontation. Not anger. It's letting someone feel the weight of their own actions without carrying it for them. It's claiming your own power, your own clarity, your own dignity. And in doing so, you rise above the betrayal, the mockery, and the pain. I still think about that night, about the message, about her laughter. But I no longer feel helpless. I no longer feel small. I no longer carry the weight of someone else's mockery in silence. I am free. Free to love authentically, free to trust wisely, free to protect my heart, and free to move forward without compromise. Because respect is not optional. Honesty is not negotiable. And love without integrity is not love at all. And that, I realized, is the most important lesson I could ever learn.